Hello, welcome back, class. I hope you all enjoyed that video showing that false belief task with children, usually ages like 3, 4, and 5. Yeah, so when children are younger than age 4, about before they develop theory of mind, they're kind of incapable of knowing that other people have different thoughts than themselves, and also they they're incapable of thinking that the self that their past self used to think something different than what they think now, which I think is just so fascinating because once children develop theory of mind at like age 4 or 5, it's so obvious that people can think other things than they do. It's so obvious that that the crayons, that box was deceptive. And so anyone who doesn't know what's in that box is going to think that crayons are inside it, even though the child knows that there are candles inside it. And so this is just another great illustration of how cognition develops and how there are different cognitive developmental milestones that really shape how children think about the world and about people and themselves. So next we're going to shift gears away from cognitive development and look more at social and personality development. So the first thing we're going to talk about is relationships. So relationships are very important in our lives. And the very first relationship that we have is with our parents. And so it's our caregiver. It could be mother or father. Just infants, their first relationship is with the person that's taking care of them. And so infants develop a strong emotional connection with their caregiver, especially if the caregiver is sensitive to their own needs, takes care of them and is sensitive to when they're happy or sad or when they need something and is there to kind of support them and fulfill their needs. And this emotional connection is called attachment. And so we're going to talk about attachment theory next. So attachment theory was really developed by a psychologist named John Bowlby in 1969. And according to Bowlby, attachment, or this kind of strong emotional connection with our caregiver, is adaptive for survival. And this makes sense because children cannot take care of themselves. They really need someone to take care of them. And so it's adaptive to develop a really strong, close bond with that person who is going to be feeding them and protecting them, and just that kind of emotional connection. So according to Bowlby, when a caregiver is responsive and dependable, so they're trustworthy, they're always there, the baby forms a secure base from which to explore the world. And so if they trust their caregiver and the caregiver is really responsive to them, the baby develops this security. This security helps not only the child kind of explore the world and learn things, but it also helps the child learn to regulate their own emotions. So it's kind of, counterintuitive, but if the caregiver is always there for the child and responds to the child's emotional needs, then the child learns to regulate their own emotions on their own. This caregiver can be a source of support or comfort during times of stress, and so it can buffer against, the negative consequences of stress. And so this caregiver is really important for early development in babies. So some people would argue that the attachment bond that infants form with their caregivers is the foundation for the development of social relationships later in life, especially romantic relationships. And so adult attachment kind of stems from infant attachment. So there's a couple different kinds of attachment styles, and the secure attachment is when the parent is dependable and trustworthy. So if the parent or the caregiver responds sensitively to a child's needs, it reinforces the belief that the parent will provide support for them when needed. It builds trust. And then the child has this secure base and they know that their parent will be there to support them. And then they can confidently explore the world and learn new things because they know that they have this secure base to go back to. And so this is what a secure attachment looks like. An insecure attachment, and this can be either anxious or avoidant, is when care is neglectful or inconsistent. And so it's when, the care is just, it's not always there, it's not reliable. So when this happens, the infant develops an avoidant response or an anxious response or a response that's disorganized. And the key here is that they don't have a secure base. And so the child has these sort of anxious or avoidant responses, and they don't have that trust and confidence that their secure base will be there. And I'd like to say that having an insecure attachment, it's often the result of one's circumstances. And so if you live in a really tumultuous time of war or, poverty or just, violence, or, there's a lot of things in the environment that can, create stress in the infant. And so it's not just bad parenting. I think, as long as if the caregiver is there and responsive to the infant, that really helps form a secure attachment. But if an infant doesn't have a secure attachment, it could also be the result of circumstances in their environment. So one of John Bowlby's students, Mary Ainsworth, was also a developmental psychologist, and she kind of expanded his work on attachment styles. And she was able to test this in the laboratory, and she developed a lab paradigm called the strange situation. And this is a really famous lab paradigm that's still used today. And this is a way to test what children's attachment styles are. And so what happens is the caregiver is with the child and an experimenter. So there's 3 people in the room, and the experimenter is they're a stranger to the child. The child doesn't know them. And then the caregiver leaves the room, and so the child's alone with the stranger. And so that's kind of a stressful situation. They're kind of uncomfortable. Their parent is gone. And then usually the child gets kind of upset. But then the parent comes back. And so they see how the child deals with the parent's return. And the way that the child responds when the parent comes back is indicative of their attachment style with their parent. And so next, there is a link in the lectures folder that's called Strange Situation. And so this is also like a 3 to 4 minute video. So please open up that video and watch the strange situation, and you'll get to see an example of what this paradigm is all about. And then when you're done watching that, so this is the 3rd recording, so come on back and watch the 4th recording, and we'll continue from there.